So it sounds like you focused on simplicity a little bit. Can you explain maybe your initial buy box and what you were looking for before you transitioned into looking for property for storage?
I guess when I first got started, it was just literally anything that was vacant land where I could establish a somewhat reliable market value for it. Because once I could do that, then I could make a discounted offer based on that initial value that I thought it was worth. And the more confident I could be about that value, the better. Because if that's just a big question mark, then they don't really even know what to offer. So I would try to get ones that there were at least a few comps or something to base my assumption on and then make that discounted offer. Back in the day, my discounted offers were like 10 to 20% of market value. It's pretty hard to find those deals out there today. Not impossible. I actually found one like that earlier this year, but I wouldn't say that's like the norm that most people see. But yeah, in terms of just the buy box, it's really just anything that's a vacant lot where I can establish the market value and preferably it's worth a little bit more, like north of 10 or 20 grand. I try to stay away from the super ultra cheap deals these days because it's just a lot of work for less money. But yeah, it's just about acquiring those things and closing on them and reselling them. And there can be all kinds of weird quirks that come up along the way. Like sometimes you might find maybe it's not buildable for some reason, or maybe it's landlocked, or maybe there's some zoning issue or flood zone or on and on. And that's okay. But you just want to make sure you're aware of those things before you buy it so you can discount your offer even more if needed. I don't want to find out about these problems once I own it, if that makes sense.
And so you're looking for things without, and you don't need to make any improvements. You can find a comparable. So when you're picking, let's say, a county and you're looking for a county, how would you select and what's your criteria there?
Yeah. It's generally just looking for a big metropolitan area and then trying to find the counties surrounding that area. And I'm not super rigid on that, but like, for example, I guess the one place I wouldn't start looking necessarily is in that metro area. Like, for example, I live in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and the county that Grand Rapids is in is Kent County. There's probably deals to be had in Kent County, but that's not the first place I would start. I would find the counties surrounding Grand Rapids or even a couple counties out so that it's relatively close to that metropolitan area. And then it's also nice, though not required, but nice if that metropolitan area is actually growing. If it's a place where people want to be, where there's diverse, stable bases of employment and that kind of thing. So, yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And do you look for any specific type of land? Are you looking for rural recreation, for infill lots? You said that you look for things that you can price easily. How do you think about what a land looks like when you can price it easily?
So, again, things have shifted a little bit. I guess speaking to most of my history, residential, yes. Recreational, yes. Agricultural, yes. Commercial and industrial, no. And the reason I say that is because it's a different type of property with a different pool of buyers, usually a much smaller pool of buyers. And there's also more stringent due diligence needed on commercial and industrial things like environmental reports and the ability to build and like even soil compaction and this kind of stuff. Like it starts to matter a lot more because the reason people buy commercial property generally is to build a commercial building on it. And it just gets into a different realm that I didn't really want to spend as much time in. So usually I was focusing more on the residential, recreational, that kind of stuff. But recently, when I'm trying to go after a self-storage property potentially, that's a different thing because it does need to be zoned commercial. So if I have an actual intended use and if I plan to develop that thing or change it in some way that's going to move it in that direction, it's nice if it's just already zoned that way. The game kind of changes when you have a different end in mind. So if you're doing what I'm trying to do, whether you're developing whatever, anything commercial, that commercial zoning is helpful to have. But otherwise, if you're not trying to go that direction, residential lots, there seems to be a whole lot more of them out there in the terms of like motivated sellers, people who own them and they're not using them and they're to drain on their wallet and their all that stuff. That usually falls more into the residential lot classification.